The developers of Peak have finally acknowledged the looker, and the community has been calling him Rocky. In a video that I saw on TikTok, they mentioned the following.
You might have noticed another Easter egg popping up. Some of you are curious if that's also us joining your game. It's not, but it's there as intended.
It is very interesting to see that they mention it as a Easter egg and not necessarily as a new feature or enemy, but it is interesting to say that it does function as intended according to Landcrab. But that's a little bit of a side note because I went down a rabbit hole of American folklore because I read the following comment. I think it's cool they added parts of American folklore, as I noticed the Scoutmaster bears similarities to the Wendigo and now the Looker, which is clearly inspired by the Hidebehind, which many stories come from people being lost in the wilderness. And I thought this comment was onto something, so I did some basic research into American folklore, looked at the Wendigo, looked at the Hidebehind, and then I also found 3 more folklore creatures that I think could fit within Peak. So first up, the Scoutmaster, the eerie, tall, elongated figure, Scoutmaster Myers, who will hunt you down when you stray too far from your group. For this video, I will reference Scoutmaster Myers to the Wendigos from Until Dawn because his figure and the Wendigos from that game are the most similar if you ask me. Except their appearance, I do think there is one major difference, and that is the nature of the creature or the nature of the Scoutmaster, because Wendigos are spirits of famine and cannibalism due to the harsh winters of the mountains. But the Scoutmaster seems to be more a spirit or creature of vengeance because he was left behind and he very strictly enforces the first rule, which is that you do not split up. That's why he comes for you. That's what he says in one of his notes. So that is the distinct difference here. Though as a side note, we did get the cannibalized update, so who knows? Maybe Scoutmaster Myers someday unlocks the ability to also eat your fellow scouts. Not just throw them around and catch them, but actually eating them when they stray too far from the group. Be fun updates. Moving on, we go to the Looker and the Hidebehind. If we go to the information on Wikipedia, it says, as its name suggests, the Hidebehind is said to be able to conceive itself. When an observer attempts to look directly at it, the creature quickly hides behind an object or behind the observer and therefore cannot be directly seen. Now, if we look at the behavior of the Looker within Peak, that is very, very similar because he will look at you from behind a rock, stalk you almost, and then when you look back at it or when you get too close, it will completely vanish, making you question whether it was even there to begin with. There are some caveats because the Hidebehind is said to attack people, and I don't think the Looker will ever have that functionality. Another thing is that the Hidebehind would take victims to the cave and then devour them. I also don't think that the Looker will ever get that type of functionality. But the interesting part here is that the Hidebehind supposedly hates alcohol. So they could do a thing where if you have an old flask added to the game, there are several beverages already in the game, so maybe an old flask with a bit of rum that gives you a tiny energy boost, but then makes you a little bit sleepy afterwards. But if you have that, or if you throw that, the Hidebehind does nothing, as it does now. But who knows? Maybe the Hidebehind or the Looker will do something in the future. We have no idea about that. And as I said, there are 3 more creatures that I saw when looking at American folklore that could be pretty interesting within the setting of Peak. The first one is the Slide Rock Bolter. Now picture this, a massive mountain monster that only lives on slopes steeper than 45 degrees. And that is perfectly possible within Peak. I know that the map generation is a bit wonky and the developers have said so themselves, but it would be possible to generate slopes like that where this monster could reside. According to the lore, it clings onto cliffs with its tails and then slides down like a living avalanche to swallow everything in its path. That might seem a little bit OP, but it could be a random event just like with the Scoutmaster that needs very specific criteria in order to trigger, and you can hear it coming. It's a whale. Imagine you're climbing up the tropics or somewhere, and all of a sudden you hear a whale noise, and you know that you have to move out of the way or else you're getting devoured. Up next is a creature called the Agropelter. Now this is a monkey-like creature from Lumberjack Tales. It hides in trees and hurls branches at people with insane accuracy. Imagine you're in the tropics, you have bees, you have those fruit bombs that you have to take care of, you have the rain that you need to be careful of, and then all of a sudden there's a monkey. You hear a monkey somewhere in the trees, and while you're climbing, it just chucks a branch at you and you lose your progression. Or maybe you can dodge the branch and it will get stuck in the wall, giving you an extra like in the mesa where you have those minor picks that you can hold on to. What if that was possible? In terms of gameplay, we can also eliminate by only giving it 5 branches and having it be a static monkey that throws branches. I love the design of the Agropelter. I've seen some pictures where it has very stretchy and elongated arms as well, so I think that could be a fun and very annoying addition to the game. In something a little bit more lighthearted, we have the Fresno Nightcrawlers. The Fresno Nightcrawlers are basically a pair of walking pants that were cryptid sightings in California. From everything that I've seen and read, these are just humanoid pants-shaped creatures that walk around. They don't seem to be dangerous, they don't seem to have any malicious intent, but they are kind of eerie. They could function as something similar to the Looker right now, where they just appear somewhere, maybe in the Mesa biome where they have hallucinations or mirages. What happens if you just see 2 pair of pants walking down the Mesa biome? Maybe they turn around, maybe they chase you, and then when you turn around to run away from them, they just disappear. There could be so many possibilities, but I figured that since the first two are a little bit more aggressive enemies, something weird and random could probably also find its way into Peak. So a bit of a TLDR. Scoutmaster is not the Wendigo. The Looker is definitely inspired by the Hidebehind, and there's plenty more weird and interesting creatures from American folklore that the Peak developers could take inspiration from. But these are just my thoughts. Thank you so much for all the love on the previous video, and I would love to read some of your comments on these takes as well.